Welcome to this week's Halacha Shir, which is of course going to be on the theme of Pesach, because we're only a few days away. The topic I've chosen is 10 pieces of bread for Bedikas Chometz. If you're listening online, please email me at j.golker@gmail.com. I'll send you the handout. There is a minhag widespread in the Jewish world that we put out pieces of bread on the night of Biur Chometz, of Bedikas Chometz, and which is this year is on Thursday night, and we will go around and we will check. And there is a minhag to put out pieces of bread as part of our search. And this is found, the source is found in the Ramah, in Hilchos Pesach in Siman Tov Lamed Beis Sif Beis, the first box on the page. The Ramah says, there is a minhag to put out pieces of bread in order that the boidik, the person searching, will find them, that otherwise it may be a bracha levatala, that a person has said, I'm going to Biur Chometz, and then you look around, you can't find anything. So therefore the minhag has arisen that you put out pieces of bread. Umiu, continues the Ramah, im loy nosan loy ikev. If you didn't put them out, loy ikev, it doesn't matter, it's not the end of the world. The das kal adam im bracha levaim nimsa. Because of course the mindset is that if you find bread, then you will destroy it, and if you don't find, you don't find. And that's the Ramah in Shulchan Aruch. Now the Taz on this Ramah, miuim lo nosan lo ikev, that if you didn't put out, it's not ma'akev. The Taz is clearly not a fan. He says v'chein roi linogi lechatchila. It's better not to put out any pieces of bread at all. Because we're worried that maybe he won't find them all. And we've all heard of situations where you put out 10 pieces of bread, you can only find 9, everyone's putting their hair out, what to do? I'm reminded of the story, a well-known story that late at night the Rav gets the call from a frantic husband and wife, and they said, look, they put out 10 pieces of bread, they only found 9, what do? And the Rav says to them, well, you've got to find it, you can't have Chometz in your house on Pesach. And they go back another 2 hours, they're searching everywhere, the cupboards, they open the dishwasher, they try everything. They call the Rav, it's now midnight, they said, Rabbi, what should we do? He says, well, you can't have Chometz in your house, so you've got to find it. So they go back, they lift up the floorboards, the roof tiles. It's now 2 a.m. They message the Rav and they say, Rav, what should we do? What should we do? So he says, well, you can't have Chometz in your house, you've got to find it. So the wife said, well, can I at least give my husband a hint? Okay, that's just a funny anecdote, I hope funny. But that's the Taz is worried about that. What advice does the Mishnah Berurah give? The Mishnah Berurah says in Siman Tov Lamed Beis on this Ramah, "V'nagim lo niach haynu chometz kosher." So first piece of advice is, says the Ramah, says the Mishnah Berurah, is you should put harder pieces of bread. For example, like pita bread. If you put some crumbly bread, then you're going to have a problem. Shalei yispare, they shouldn't crumble and cause more problems. V'gam b'mokum meshumar mipnei hatinokus v'achbarim, and make sure you also put it in a protected place that kids shouldn't move it, or achbarim, if you've got animals in the house, or achbarim, mice or rats or something, that you shouldn't have any further problems. So 2 pieces of advice, number 1 from the Mishnah Berurah, is that you find hard pieces of chometz, and number 2, put it in a place which is sort of protected, that it shouldn't cause more problems, they shouldn't be sort of moved to somewhere where you didn't put it. Miu, this continues the Mishnah Berurah, choylek al zeh. So the ein kan chashash bracha levatala, t'cheinu hamitzvah livdek hachometz v'lachabez achrav shema yimtze v'im lo yimtzeim b'kach klum. So he says that it's not ma'akev, he explains the Ramah, because the mitzvah is to search, and you make a bracha, and if you don't find, you don't find. V'taz kosav oy da bracha koya mashe yivai lemocha. Another, which I didn't quote this, but the Taz also says that the bracha could be going not just on the search, but on that which you're going to burn tomorrow. Bevada mashe yishoy machilosoi. It's sort of continuing the B'yomika bracha the next morning, and therefore you're going to have something which you're going to burn, and therefore the bracha could be going on that, and that's why the bracha, not finding any chometz, is not the end of the world. However, the Taz does say that lechatchila you should not put out these pieces of bread. And then the Mishnah Berurah says, take a look at the Chok Yaakov, the Mikol Mokom Ein Kedai Levatel Minhag Shel Yisrael, that it's not appropriate, it's not Kedai to be mevatel this well-established minhag in Klal Yisrael. V'ayin shom shenosen time leminhag v'chein harizal kosav sheminhag zeh v'sheaniach yud petitim. Because the Ramah doesn't mention 10, The Ramah says putting out pieces of bread, but the Arizal says you put out 10 pieces of bread. So the Mishnah Berurah quotes the Chok Yaakov, who says that it's a minhag Yisrael Torah, and therefore you should not abandon the minhag. And moreover, the Arizal says that the idea is to put 10 pieces out, and there are clearly some Kabbalistic ideas going on. If you look at the Chok Yaakov, I've got in paragraph 4 in my handout. He quotes the Taz that lechatchila royu linoik shelo laniach klum, and then he quotes the Chok Yaakov quotes Ma'arival kosav atam shemanichin shelo yishkach levatel lemocha, that one of the reasons is that you shouldn't forget to do bir chometz tomorrow. Masha'en also be mevatel the chometz. Masha'en kin kisheyesh the chometz nizka bizman bir levatel ad kan l'shoneh. In other words, one of the reasons is that if you've got 10 pieces of chometz, then you're going to have to burn it tomorrow morning, and that will remind you to say the declaration and be mevatel the chometz when you say kol chamira, because the ikar is to be mevatel the chometz, and therefore min haTorah there is no chometz around. And therefore, midrabanan, of course, we make sure we get rid of everything in case Shema, you might say gluska yofe, that you might come to find a nice piece of chometz and you might inadvertently come to eat it on Pesach. But the idea is that if you were to do bedikas chometz without putting out 10 pieces of bread, the concern is that you might find nothing, and therefore there'll be nothing to burn the next morning, and you may forget to do bittul chometz, which means to say kol chamira and to annul all the chometz in your possession that you know about. Now, v'li nira tam haminag, continuing the Chok Yaakov, v'li nira tam haminag, she'em yivdeg v'lo yimtze zman ma yisrasha shuv v'yisyayish min abedika v'lo yivdeg goyet heitev. I've got another reason why I think it's important. Says the Chok Yaakov that if you're going around your house and you haven't put out 10 pieces of bread, the concern is you may not take it seriously enough. If you know, however, you've got pieces of bread around, and certainly the boidek, the guy leading the Bedikas Chometz, doesn't know where they are, let's say the wife or one of the older children put it out, I wouldn't give it to the young children to do, but let's say one of the older children put them out, then it makes the search much more serious. Fine. And therefore he'll take it more seriously, he'll search properly. And concludes the Chok Yaakov, you should not abandon this age-old minhag. Now I want to finish with a very interesting piece from the Minchas Osher. The Minchas Osher says that actually from a halachic point of view there are very strong reasons why you should still do this minhag. How so? What is that? So take a look. This is the Minchas Osher in Siman Chometz. This is the bottom box on the page. ומאז היה נראה לאוניברסיטי. דבזמננו אפשר שצורך להניח פציצים אלה מעיקר דין. Says Osher Weiss, Shlita, that I think nowadays there is actually a very strong reason why you have to do it me'ikar din. It's not just a minhag anymore. Why? What's the reality of our lives? That Baruch Hashem, for many days and weeks, perhaps even longer, we have been preparing our homes to be free of chometz. We sort of go, we go to town. I remember as a child, my father, Zichron Rocha, used to say that one time I came down as a 3 or 4 year old boy and I said, Daddy, I'm very confused. He said, what's the matter? Because it was Purim. And I came downstairs, I said, Daddy, how can it be that it's Purim downstairs and it's Pesach upstairs? Obviously, I'd heard my mother say, don't go up with that cookie or whatever it is, because it's Pesach upstairs. How can it be Purim downstairs and Pesach upstairs? So we clean our house for many weeks in advance. For kimat barish le'yimtzu chometz b'shas habedika, and by the night of Erev Pesach, it's pretty sure there's no chometz left. Sofik im yesh b'zeh shem bedika, ilulei noch petit neila. It could be a shaila whether this even counts as bedikas chometz, unless you put out some pieces of bread, because otherwise the house has been cleaned so thoroughly that it may not even count as a proper bedikas chometz. That's not reason number one. The Oid says at the Minchas Osher, the efshir to call ikar nikoyin kedei nakas abayis me chometz dinoi k'mei bedikas chometz. It could be that the actual cleaning in advance of Pesach constitutes bedikas chometz. V'kein shekos vataz sherechitzas u'mishash haguf lefnei tvila mahani k'mei bedika v'iyun. The analogy with regard to tefillah, that it could be that washing the body in preparation could count as bedika v'iyun, which is a stage of the tefillah process, of the tahara process. The point is that if you're checking out the house so carefully before Yom Tov, then that itself could be bedikas chometz, and therefore when you're doing it on the night, you're not really doing anything because you've already done it. And third of all, v'lochein nochen shebe'itim lo niach petitim ele me'kadin. Sorry, well, I missed that one. V'chochma shleima kosev oid the mashenikach mashenikach gimel yom lifnei hachag l'shem pesach dinu k'mokum she'em machnisim bechometz. Amazing. There is what do you have to do bedikas chometz on? Only areas where you brought chometz in. But if you've got rooms where you never ever bring chometz in, you don't have to do bedika there. And therefore, says the chochma shleima, if you do cleaning the house 3 days before Pesach, to the extent that it's free of chometz, those areas, and it could be the whole house, has got a din of a mokum she'in machnisin bechometz, and therefore there's no chiv bedika on it at all. Ve'ein bechiv bedika klal. V'chein kosev bedas teir lemarsham ayin sham. So for 3 reasons, says the Minchas Osher, he says to keep the minhag is very important. V'lochein nochen shebetiyim haloniach petitim eile. In our days, it's appropriate to put out these pieces of bread mi'ikah din. Amazing. Obviously, the guy who's checking, or the few people can be checking, they don't know where the pieces of bread are. Because if he knows where they are, and it's just sort of, he's just going through the motions and just going around the room collecting the 10 pieces, then obviously that's not considered a bedika. So there we have it, very interesting minhag in the Jewish people. The Ramah says the minhag is to put out pieces of bread on the night when we do bedikas chometz. However, if you didn't put it out, then it's not ma'akev, it's not the end of the world. And his concern is that we put them out, there shouldn't be a bracha levatala. The Taz doesn't like the minhag, we're worried that you might not find them all, and the Mishnah Berurah gives some advice as to how we go about it. Make sure it's hard pieces of bread that won't crumble, and put them in a place where they're sort of meshuma, sort of they're protected and they won't go missing. And the Chok Yaakov gives other reasons why the minhag is important to keep, as we've discussed. And the Minchas Osher gives 3 very sort of strong reasons as to why nowadays it's very important to still do this minhag, to do it carefully. But the 3 reasons are: number 1, that if the house where it's kept, it's kimat borrow, that he hasn't found anything because we've sort of prepared for Pesach so many weeks in advance, then it could be that without putting them out, it's not even considered a bedika. Moreover, it could be that it's got a din of that the actual cleaning that we do constitutes bedikas chometz. And lastly, the chochma shlema, i.e., that the houses that we have, that when we do our cleaning before Pesach, they become a place of a mokum she'in machnisim bechometz, and therefore it's not shaykh to do bedika anyway on it. And therefore the Minchas Osher is of the opinion that nowadays you should put pieces out, make sure the person checking does not know where they are, but someone does know where they are, and that way we can maintain this well-established, long-standing minhag in Klal Yisrael without any concern.